what's up, guys? Thanks for checking out American Made. First off, let me thank all the new subscribers that have subscribed recently. The channel's really been growing, so I appreciate that. Last year in 2021, early in the year, January, I did an interview with Gunner Allen Lindbloom. I posted some of the clips on another channel, but the whole thing has never been released. I've never posted it. So I wanted to post it and let you check it out. It's interesting to watch it now, considering a lot of the things that have come out concerning him. A lot of things about his past, his family, who he's connected with. Was he actually connected with the Detroit mafia? You know, I think it's interesting. I asked him some questions in this interview about his grandfather, who he talks about in a lot of interviews. Was he actually a made guy? And I think you'll find his answer pretty interesting. But I've got to say, when it comes to Gunner, he's always been cool with me, and he's been gracious with his time when it comes to doing interviews. So I can't say anything about him, and this is not meant to portray him in a negative way. I just think it's interesting with all the things that's come out, all the things that Scott Bernstein has been talking about here lately on other channels concerning Gunner. I just think it's interesting comparing this interview in early 2021 to some things that's going on now. So y'all check it out. Let me know down in the comments what you think, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep following American Made. I appreciate it. What's going on, man?
How you doing, man? How you doing? Yeah, it's cool to be here. Kind of give you the 1,000-foot overview of me. I was born and raised in mostly in the city of Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and St. Clair Shores. But Grosse Pointe, Michigan is a really wealthy, probably the wealthiest city in Michigan. It borders Detroit. So on one side of Alta Road is Detroit, and then on the other side is like mansions. I lived on the mansion side when I was a kid. My parents got divorced when I was 4, so I moved to my grandparents, my grandma, Grandpa Toko. And if anyone does a little interest to do a little research and find out, like if you just do the word Toko in Detroit, Tocco in Detroit, Google it, you'll get a million hits about the mafia. And I was raised in that kind of environment all my life. It's all I knew. Every uncle, everybody was a wise guy. Everybody, it was just my normal life. And then I moved out when I was, my mom got us a house when I was about 10, and I lived with my mom for 3 years. So I got expelled from high school at age 15, like Sammy the Bull, which is funny. Me and Sammy the Bull were talking about that together on a Zoom call, how we both got expelled at age 15, and just kind of the same thing happened. We ended up in the streets full time, selling drugs, robbing, stealing, flipping merchandise, doing anything to survive, while everybody else is in school. My friends at football, and they're in high school, and they're doing whatever. And I was out in the streets, man, selling coke and dope and weed, running around flipping stolen merchandise and dealing with nothing but scumbags, because the only people who weren't in school that I knew were freaking dropouts and scumbags. And then I got to be about 16. I'm selling weed. My uncle finds out I selling weed. I think I'm in trouble. Now, this is the who, by the way, introduced me to the life of crime. His name is Peter Toko. God rest his soul. He's my favorite uncle. And he brought me into a life of crime by having me do some little petty crimes and crap that I did when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. And I looked up to him. He had a new Cadillac. Everybody showed him a lot of respect. Everybody shook his hand like a double handshake. They all, hey, Pete, how you doing? They wouldn't take his money at their stores and restaurants. They'd give him free everything, comp everything. And I'd see that. I'd see a perspective. I'd see all this stuff and kind of understand. So I want to be like him. So then at age 16, he finds some weed in the pocket of my coat, and he takes me in a basement. I'm thinking I'm in trouble. I think he's about to freaking let me have it. He's going to tell my grandpa I'm in all kinds of trouble. And he says, this is bullshit weed, man. If you're going to sell weed, sell good weed. And he takes me upstairs in the garage and freaking pulls out a big ass box of like 10 pounds. And he's like, here, take these and sell these. And so I'm like, okay. So now I'm in the weed game. He gives me like 10 pounds of good weed. And that was just kind of the transition of my life. Over the next few years, I got involved in I became security at poker games for a very high-level mafia boss who's very famous. His name is Tony Giacalone. He liked me. He liked that I was a tough guy. He was a street guy, a tough guy. And here's a guy who's made millions and millions of dollars off the street, man. He had a black organization, the black mafia family, that he organized like the mafia and then provided him with drugs and had him sell, Frank Nitty Usher. And then he was generally a bad dude, man. I'm telling you, the FBI believe he was responsible for up to 60 murders. This was a bad mofo. He liked me because I was always in trouble for fighting, or he'd hear about me tearing up clubs and breaking a guy's jaw or knocking out his teeth. So when I went and saw him one time, I was with my grandpa telling him these stories. My grandpa was in bodies with him. So Tony Giacaloni's daughter married my cousin. Her name is Nina. She would be my mother's first cousin, which made her my second cousin, I guess. So anyways, he basically one day he said, I got a problem. The first thing was that he said, my nephew's getting picked on. So I freaking went by these kids in the neighborhood where they were playing basketball. He got punched in the face. He wasn't a hitter. He was kind of a freaking pussy. A good dude, but he's a pussy. So and Tony called me and told me this. I got enraged by this. So I freaking flew my ninja. I was on my ninja. I flew across town because I was at the beach chilling. And I went up in his backyard where these kids were playing basketball. I basically punked them all out. I said, listen, they knew who I was, which I was surprised. When I walked back there, they're like, hey, what's up, Al, man? Tony's your cousin? Because I said, which one of you bitches put your hands on my cousin? And they're like, oh, man, what's up, Al? And as soon as they said, what's up, Al? I was like, wait a minute, they know me? I live in a whole nother city. I'm in another neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that they knew me told me that they knew what I was about and what was about to happen. So I told them, you put your hands on my cousin ever again, I'll stomp your ass. All of you bitches. You got that? And they did. And they never left. They never messed with Tony again. But then Tony Jr., because my cousin's name is Tony too, and the big Tony who asked me to do it, he knew that what I did and he liked it. So a couple month later, whatever, 2 months later, he asked me to help him out with his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend showed up at her house all drunk and like smacked her around and then fell asleep, passed out. She called him and told him. He's like a 60-year-old man. I'm like, I'm maybe 19, 20. And Tony says in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, he's like, yo, listen, go handle this. And I'm like, all right, give me the address. I go there with my boy, just another big Italian kid. And I go up in the house quietly, sneak in there. And I end up grabbing this dude and freaking smashing his face, just pummeling him. I had this big nugget ring and just smashing his face, bloody all over. And I threw him out of there. The girl told Tony what I did. So at this point, Tony's like, I like this for, Alonzo, man. This guy gets it done, man. You tell him get it done. He gets it done every time. So he starts asking me to work security at poker games, at casino nights, at various parties and things like that. So that's how I kind of got in with him. And then eventually just let in more and more stuff and a lot of things like extortion. And I got in a bank robbery and all kinds of robberies, robbing drug dealers, robbing pimps, just anything to make money, man. I was just freaking scumbag. I just robbed everybody. And I pushed my weight around. I'm lucky nobody ever killed me. I kind of strategically did that. If I found out there was a drug dealer in the neighborhood and he wasn't connected to anybody, any of us, I'd go tell him that he's got to pay me if he wants to sell drugs. If he got loud, I freaking, punch him in the mouth. If he still didn't pay me, I put a pistol in his mouth and say, next time I'll blow your freaking head off. I'm like, I know you're selling weed to that guy and this guy and this guy, right? So what you're selling a pound for $1,000, whatever. I'm like, I get $100 a pound. Let me find out that you're not paying me the $100 a pound, and I'll come back here and blow your head off. And the reason for that is this is our town. We control this market. You can't come in here and just start selling weed to our customers or coke or whatever. And this is our money. You're taking money out of our mouth. So if you want to operate, then you got to cut us in on it. We'll help you with the cops. We'll help keep the cops off you. If anyone's investigating you and we find out, we'll tip you off. You go to jail. We'll help you out. But you got to pay us. So I think that was one of the things that I did, shake down this kind of no-name drug dealers that were connected. But in Detroit, there's a million of those all over Detroit, the suburbs. It's just an endless supply of those. But a lot of people in the Italian community, they knew exactly who we were, and we weren't, for any game. So they knew. So they sent me. And it was serious. Things could go bad real fast. Sometimes they did. Yeah, it was Tony Giacaloni. That's what I'm talking about. He was going to meet Jimmy Hoffa the day Hoffa disappeared. He is the man that Hoffa was going to meet the day Hoffa disappeared. But they tricked the FBI. What you don't know, but I do, because my friend Scott Bernstein, he's the expert. He's the world's foremost expert on Jimmy Hoffa. He also wrote the book called Motor City Mafia, which is about my family.
I've watched.
He wrote a bunch of other books, Mafia Prince, and yeah, he's good. So he told me that the way they played it, dude, these guys are absolutely brilliant geniuses. And anyone wants to listen, go to my YouTube show. And anything I do with Scott Bernstein, I'm doing a mini series right now called about the Detroit Mob. I think we're 2 or 3 episodes in, and we talk about some of the genius mastermind crap that they did. Like the one we just talked about in the last show was there was this dude named Fionas. He was a dude, black drug dealer who came up under the Jackalonis. The guy got busted, and so he decides he's going to flip. They basically, he wasn't even busted yet, but they just said, put him in a room and said, we're coming. Full court press. You're being indicted. You're going to be researched. Now, you can make this go away if you testify against Jackalonis, and this other dude will put you in witness protection. So he said, okay, give me 48 hours. I got to get things in order. I had to get my wife and my baby kid. So 48 hours, they put him. This is going to be hard to believe for you. It's going to be absolutely hard to believe. The Giacalone brothers had somebody on the inside with the feds, right? So they arranged for this dude Fionas to be kept at a hotel upstairs from a party that they were hosting. The whole mob was downstairs at a party. Tony Giacalone's 40th anniversary party. They were having downstairs in the Ritz-Carlton, while upstairs 2 FBI agents were protecting this informant. And what happened is there was a 10-minute window when this team of FBI left and a new team of FBI were coming, and an assassin slipped through that 10-minute window, kicked in the door, slit the guy's throat, zip-tied and hog-tied his freaking wife and kid, walked out of there and left. Now, when the next FBI comes, 7 minutes later, there's a dead dude there. They got him. Now, if that's not a brilliant freaking mastermind move, I don't know what to tell you, but that's the type of stuff that these Giacalone brothers did. They were freaking brilliant masterminds, very, very dangerous. Hoffa was their guy. Hoffa was basically the Giacalone's puppet and Jack Toco's puppet. And he did whatever they said. When he started talking about, I'm going to rid the Teamsters of the mafia, yada, yada, yada. Of course, the Detroit Mafia had more to lose than anybody, because Hoffa had bankrolled 4 casinos for Detroit. So the Teamster Fund had bankrolled 4 casinos for Detroit. One of them got busted. Joe Zarelli got busted skimming, went to prison. That opened the floodgate for the feds. Now they're investigating all these casinos, and they start popping all these mob guys who they're skimming for the casinos. It all started with Detroit. The Detroit guy effed it up. Tony Zarelli got busted. He kind of really put the light on the Vegas casino skims. But it started with the Giacalone brothers. He was a very, very dangerous dude, but he liked me. That's the thing. I got him mad a few times at me because I was skimming his poker players, because I worked security at his poker games. And then I'd see the guys and I'd remember the face and names. Then I'd see him later and say, hey, you want to sit in one of my games? I won't cut every pot. I'll cut every third pot, so the bigger payout. And before you know it, I got 5, 6 guys playing poker with me, and then they're not going to Tony's regular game. And then Tony finds out and asks them, hey, why you guys aren't playing my game? He's like, oh, I'm playing your nephew's game, man. He's only cutting every third pot, bigger payout. So he has a sit down with me and tells me to stop. I do it again like a month later? I get another sit down with me, and he's like, how much you cut out that pot? It's all he says. How much did you cut out that pot? I was with my grandpa, sitting with my grandpa Toco and Tony Giacalone in my grandparents' house at the kitchen table. He says, how much you cut? All he says is, I'm like, hey, what's up, Tony? How you doing? He's like, how much you cut out that pot? Now I know I'm in trouble. And I'm like, 5. He's like, go give me 6. He's like, go get it. I'll wait. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I looked at my grandpa, and he's like, for 6, man, I didn't even have the money. So I had to go borrow the freaking money from my friend who owned a bar and a restaurant and get the money and give it to him. Now, the third time I did it, my grandpa sat me down and said, stop. I can't help you if you keep doing this. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. So I stopped. And Tony didn't talk to me for like a year. He didn't really, not that he just didn't talk to me. He just didn't call me. He didn't have me do anything. Then I saw him at a party and started laughing about something and talking. He said, yeah, swing by the club, man. Well, got something for you to do. And before you know it, I'm back doing collections for him and stuff like that. So, but anyways, yeah, he was a bad mofo.
Was your grandfather, was he a made guy?
I can't confirm or deny that, dude. First of all, if he was, I wouldn't say that on record, because my cousins watch this show, and that some people watch very quietly. Was he a made guy? I don't know. If he was, he did it really quietly. But my grandfather was very revered amongst the family. I think a lot of people put more stock in that made thing than you realize. There are guys that aren't made, like Al Hilf and Freddie Salem and some of these Jewish guys and guys like my grandpa, if he wasn't, who are extremely powerful, big time bookies. My grandpa was a layoff bookie. He loved sports. Like, listen, they treated my grandpa like he was a don. The old men, the bosses, Tony Giacalone, Jack Tocco was his Gumbati. The boss would come over. They would sit there and talk in Sicilian for hours. My grandmother made him ricotta cookies. He loved ricotta cookies. Every time he'd come over, he'd be like, "No, Grace, you don't need to make me cookies." You know, she's like, "No, I like you, Jack." He's Giacomo. Said, I know you like them. Let me make you these cookies. It takes 10 minutes. I make these cookies and eat them with the coffee. And they talk in Sicilian and they come around a lot. And like Tony Corrado, trying to think some other old men that, you know, it's funny. I'm telling the name. Jimmy Q and Vincent Melee were at our house a lot. I almost say that Vincent Melee might have been my mom's godfather. So, I mean, they're all these high level mob dudes were around all the time. And they love my grandpa. They all had their headquarters in the Eastern Market. This is downtown. It's the Little Italy of Detroit. It's like a 1 square mile area where it's wholesale.
Is
food,
that still
produce,
around?
you know, dairy, meat, everything. Still around, still there. The mob controls the whole thing. It's just, you know, everybody there is an Italian. There's a couple things maybe bought in that aren't, but really you have to even pay to have a business there. You're paying the mob to be even near there. So like I talked to a black dude, man, who'd been there for like 35 years. He owns Bert's Theater Lounge. And I'm like, dude, did you feel a little weird when you first, because I had a party at his place. And I mean, he's like, yeah, your grandpa, all of them, they'd all come in all the time. And he's like, they told me you're gonna have to pay or, you know, or else. I'm like, so what'd you do? He's like, I paid. Yeah, he is laughing. Maybe he's still paying, maybe not. But yeah, it's there. And that's where all the old mob guys were all the time. And I started going down there. First memories, 3, 4, 5 years old, and then you know, it was only a few miles from our house. So my grandpa owned a business there, so we were down back and forth all the time. Then my uncle, when I got a little older, he was bored and he liked kind of bringing me in the fold. So he'd say, "Alonzo, come on, we're going to the market," and we go down to the market, and just everybody knew everybody. You know, all the Italians, you know, they'd all hang out, wise guys, smoking cigars, hang out. They all had an office in a basement, office in the back, whatever, and just talking Italian and business. It was like you're back in Italy, bro. It was crazy, but all wise guys, all mob dudes. So now that's how I got exposed to all this, really. But my grandpa was a very revered man. I can't confirm or deny what his status was. I never asked. It's not something you ask somebody. And I asked my grandfather, my uncle, and he says, this is what he says. Grandpa is a friend of ours. That's all you need to know. But they'd introduce me as a friend of ours. And I'm like, I'm not freaking, you know, made dude either. Yeah. I'd be in a room and that guy would walk in and he'd like, this is a friend of ours. He introduced me, you know, this is Lonzo, my nephew. He's a friend of ours, whatever. Afterwards, I'd be like, you know, I'm not really a friend of ours. I'm a friend of yours. You know what I'm saying? You introduced me wrong. And he's like, yeah, you're right, man. I'm just so used to you being around that I forget, you know? So who knows? I don't know. You'd be surprised how many not made guys in New York are out there getting money and working their way up. You don't start a made guy. It takes 20 years to get made. So the guy starts off, you know, street guy, hustling and scamming and robbing, stealing, doing what he does. But if he's a good earner and he's loyal to his capo, you know, loyal to his boss, he means he's kicking up money. Every time he makes a score, he's kicking up an envelope. Every time he hits a lick, he's kicking up an envelope. And he's always doing it because he's a hustler. You know, and that means he's smart. He's kicking up. Eventually, that guy is going to get sponsored. And that, you know, his boss, the capo, is going to go to a capo regime. His boss said, listen, I want to bring this guy in. You know, I want to make him all the way part of the family. And then they kind of do a little homework and watch him a little while longer. And then they finally go to the boss, say, hey, listen, man, I'm going to freaking, you know, I'll give this guy, you know, bring him to the family full fledged. So they do that. But most, I would say probably, honestly, 2/3 of any family, doesn't matter where it is, are not made guys. They're just hustlers trying to get made or working their way up or whatever. If you're dedicated to La Cosa Nostra, these guys will notice, and they know. And the way you prove it is by pushing money up their way. As long as they're pushing money up their way, it shows you're dedicated to La Cosa Nostra. In my case, I try to avoid kicking money up as much as possible. simply because I knew I couldn't be made. I was told I couldn't. And my uncle said, you'll never be a full part of this thing. So, consider yourself lucky you have an out. He told me that. My Uncle Sal told me the same thing. He's like, consider if you're lucky, you have an out. You can walk away anytime you want. You can go all the way in. It's in. You're only out feet first. I'm like, man, listen, I don't really care about none of it. All the mob stuff means nothing. I just want to make money, hit the club, max some hoes, go fishing, go hunting, whatever. I don't really care about the whole, Costa Nostra. I honored and respected the rules and the integrity rules and things like that. I adhered to them, and I respected the guys who knew they were on their way up to being made someday. I endorsed that or whatever back then I did. And I just respected it, but I didn't care personally, just because I knew I was told I can't do it. So why would I put any stock in it? So I basically was this freaking, a kind of a soldier for hire, soldier of fortune kind of guy who just did anything for money. But I was treated, honestly, better by some of the top brass than some of the made guys, because I was a Toko, because I was my grandfather's grandson, because I was Peter Toko's nephew, because I was Jack Toko's great nephew. What the frick is this, man? Yeah. Somebody tried calling me just now. I got it. You're good. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I should have put it. I should have put it on airplane mode, but I don't think if I put it in airplane mode, then I won't be able to do the Zoom call. So
yeah, they're like one of the founding families of the Detroit mob, right?
Yeah, no, not even the one of the founding. They are the founding. So originally, William Vito Tocco, who would be a great uncle of mine, was the founding father of the Detroit Partnership. There's kind of a mafia war going on, a lot of people killing each other. He organized everybody to stop that and said, we're going to be all together, one team, make a lot of money, yada, yada. It was during Prohibition. And he became the boss, named himself the boss. He was a boss for only like 7 years. Then he went to prison for a few years. And then his cousin, he had married a Zarelli girl. And so now, I guess it would be his brother-in-law. He, if I get it correct, I always mess this up, but so he named his brother-in-law the boss, who was Uno Zarelli, very smart man, very powerful, very smart dude. He controlled the mafia for like 40 years. He names his son the new boss, who's like the acting boss now that he goes into semi-retirement, buys a condo in Miami, and just wants to freaking ride out the wave. The guy's got millions of dollars, running the mob for 40 years, made millions. And he got Tony Giacalone and Billy Giacalone kind of run the street affairs, so he could kind of walk away. He was actually, Tony Giacalone was his driver, so he named him street boss. But anyways, Tony Zarelli, who is now the acting boss, gets busted in this casino skim thing, and he goes to prison. And it was kind of stupid how they got busted. So he really kind of disgraced the family. He disgraced Uno Zarelli, the godfather, by getting busted. And when he got busted, it wasn't that he only went to prison for 4 years, but he brought all this attention on Vegas, which illuminated all this hands the mafia had in these Vegas casinos, and it really created a domino effect. Now you got all these guys get busted, the whole, like the movie Casino, all that was because of Tony Zarelli, who got busted. So now the real boss says to his son, I'm going to pass over you, and I'm going to name your cousin, Giacomo, Blackjack Tocco, the new boss. And so, which is, again, Uno Zarelli's brother-in-law was originally, now it goes to William, that was William Vito Tocco. Now he gives the family back to the Toccos, says, your son, this is Black Bill Tocco's son, Jack, we're giving him the family. So now Uno Zarelli steps away and lets Jack Tocco take over. And that's when there was kind of a big divide between Tony Zarelli and Jack Tocco. He was salty. He was mad that his own father passed him over and gave the family to his cousin. And it created a lot of animosity that lasted for years. Tony Zarelli kind of worked away from the family. He kind of had his own little mini family where he just did his own thing over here, the boss did his own thing here, but the boss basically made the Giacalone brothers the bosses of the streets and handle everything. And Tony Zarelli didn't really like that, but there's nothing you can really do about it because that's the boss. And so they ended up getting in a fist fight when they were like 80 years old, which is crazy, man. These two old men were fighting. Yeah, it's crazy. They didn't like each other. Stupid Tony Zarelli told the FBI that Jimmy Hoffa was buried on some property that Jack Tocco used to own. So, like a little bitch, he does this. Of course, it humiliates Jack Tocco. It humiliates the entire family. This punk, he's broke. You know, Jack Tocco put him on the shelf. He cut him out of all the rackets. No more construction, no more nothing. He said, "You're out of here. You're a freaking bum." And the reason for that was because his crew, which was Nobe Tocco and a bunch of freaking doofuses, a bunch of lackey losers, basically did the same stuff that I did. They just weren't as good as me at it. You know what I'm saying? They were bad at hurting people, and they got busted extorting some freaking bookie, and the guy testified, and it created this huge freaking domino effect that ended up getting the whole family busted. And so that really pissed off Jack Tocco, and that's when he shelved Tony Zarelli. He said, "You're out, man. Get the frick out of here." Basically kicked him out of the family. And so he didn't have any money. So Zarelli didn't have the money, so he was trying to get like a book deal, yada yada yada. He had Scott Bernstein writing his book, and what happened was they didn't find nothing. And Nobe Tocco, which was Tony Zarelli's guy, got busted and turned rat. Turned rat, and he's the only made guy to ever rat in Detroit, ever. Only guy ever flipped. So that caused a lot of dissension. Jack Tocco, the boss, ended up going to prison. He's convicted of the RICO of maintaining a racketeering influence criminal organization for like 30 some years, and he ended up, they convict him of RICO and sent him to prison for running the mafia for 30 years. They give him 1 year and 1 day is what they gave him in a camp, federal camp. The prosecution freaking flipped out, man, blew their freaking lid. They were like, "What the frick?" Obviously, Jack had bought the judge. So the prosecution was so livid that they brought it back to get him resentenced and said he didn't get enough time. Now, I remember this because he was sending letters to my grandpa. My grandpa would read me the letters. So, you know, he was in there. And anyways, they brought him back and he got out after a year. He was out for about a year. Then they brought him back and resentenced him to 9 more months. And clearly the freaking judge was on the payroll. You know, a guy gets busted for RICO and controlling the mob for 30 years, and all they got was freaking 18 months or whatever. So that really pissed off freaking Jack, and that's when he told Tony, "Get out of here," and everyone connected to Tony to get the hell out of here. And a couple of them like got caught wiring up. They didn't do it themselves, but Paul Corrado's car was wired up, and they had Tony Zarelli in there and Nobe Tocco and a couple other guys, you know, talking about extorting this guy and that guy, and they got him. You know, and so I think Paul Corrado was running the dice game. They knew he'd be in there for a couple hours, so the FBI went in his car, put a mic in it, and got his ass. So Operation Game Tax. It was in the 96. So I got called in. Listen, over like a 4-day period, man, my phone was blowing up. Everybody's like freaking such and such got arrested. Such and such got arrested. No, such and such got arrested. Such, including the boss, and they all getting pulled in. I knew a couple guys that got pulled in. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm not really that involved. I have extorted a lot of bookies, a lot of them. So I was a little worried. So then they call me in and they start asking me, "You know this guy, you know that guy, you know, we've seen you with him. He says that you freaking made him pay." I'm like, "Dude, you got evidence of that?" And they're like, "We got evidence." I'm like, "I don't think you do. I think you got nothing. Otherwise, you'd be charging me, not having this conversation." So I'd be like, "Listen, do I need my lawyer?" And they'd be like, "No, you're not being charged." I'm like, "Well, can I go?" And they're like, "We can keep it for 4 hours." I'm like, "Okay, well, ask anything you want. I'm not answering dick." They start showing me pictures of myself with people doing walk and talks, videos of myself with people, snippets of wire recordings, me talking to people, always coded. They're like, "This, what does that mean?" You know what I'm saying? What is, you know, and I'd say the V or something like big, you know what I'm saying? You know, he's still down the V freaking two or something like that. I'm like, what are you talking? I don't know, man. But anyways, one time they had me walking in. I had a ton of freaking money again, almost a couple $1 million after the Super Bowl that I collected from like 20 bookies, more than that, like 40 bookies. And I was walking in the Hazel Park racetrack with it. It's freaking insane. Just walking in with freaking $1.7 million. It was in a duffel bag. And they saw me, and then they showed me the pictures of it. And they're like, what was in the bag? And I didn't miss a beat. I'm like, oh, sandwiches for the guys. I went to Tubby's, got the guys sandwiches. And they're like, yeah, sure it was. But anyway, so yeah, that was game tax was a mess. They brought me in. They actually accused me. They actually tried to say I was involved in a murder and said that if this gets tied, that murder is tied into this RICO, I could face the death penalty and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, listen, I don't know nothing. I kept asking, do I need my lawyer? And they like, no, we're not charging you yet. I'm like, I said, obviously you got nothing, man. If you had it, you charged me. So let me go. They came at me from age 16 to the day I got locked up. It was a nonstop game of cat and mouse. I was always just ducking this, deep that. I beat an ATF case. I had a guy owed a bunch of money to a bookie, young guy. His dad had his own collection, a gun collection, scary move. I'd go in there and get all these guns. Worried about the guy's going to pull a gun on me, but I explained who we were. He was scared. I got this like $20,000 gun collection. I took it, sold it, got the money, never gave them the extra. I told him I was going to cover the 10 grand that he owes on whatever I get after that for your guns. You're going to collect insurance. I just told him, report the insurance you stolen. He's like, yeah, okay. He does that. What happens is, I keep all the guns and sell them, make like 20 G's on them. He gets his insurance, which is fine. He's happy. But a couple of those guns got caught in some like drug raids and were involved in murders and stuff in Detroit. And they tracked the guns back to the dude. And the dude, says, I don't know. They shook him down, scared him. The kid says that I extorted him. They gave my name, blah, 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 blah. He was going to testify to this. We got word of it, sealed indictment. They were putting together. I ran to New York and hid for 3 years. When I was in New York, I lived under an alias. You don't need a car in New York. Subway is all you need, or a bus. So I never needed a car. And so I actually played semi-pro football, believe it or not, under an alias in New York. Won a couple championships in the league. But anyways, eventually my uncle was able to get to the kid and say, listen, your dad he was a union worker in like the auto union. And he basically said, if you freaking testify, not only are you going to have to worry about your health, but we're going to make sure your dad never works again, man. He'll lose his job, his benefits, everything. We control the union. So your dad wants to keep his job, wants to keep his Teamster pension, all that. You need to shut the F up and say that you did this. You say you stole the guns, you sold the guns. Gunner had nothing to do with it. You just made that up to cover your ass because you had a freaking gambling debt, blah, 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 blah. So the dude went to them, the ATF, and said that. And so the indictment was thrown out. They tried to get me on weed. I did get busted for steroids. I later got busted with a bunch of weed, 18 pounds of weed. It was a nonstop game of cat and mouse till the end. And then on the end, I really was just kind of rogue, man. Went crazy, robbing drug dealers, robbing pimps, robbing banks, just robbing and stealing. I was out there. I had 2 houses, a bunch of toys, cars, all this stuff. I was living way beyond my means. And I was just like trying to maintain this facade of success to my grandparents and everybody. Nice. I had just bought a nice new house, a couple hundred G's almost. It was a nice house, and a couple of cars and every toy you could think of: jet skis, 4-wheeler, dirt bike, motorcycle, jet boat, everything, snowmobiles. So, and then I developed a drug habit. When I broke my ankle, I started taking pain pills, and the pain pills led to heroin. So it's all kind of this downhill thing over like an 18-month period. And in the end, I didn't care. I wasn't kicking up money to my uncle. He told me, he's like, you're out of control. What's this about the drug dealer, man? Johnny shot this dope dealer. You guys freaking rob a dope dealer. Johnny shoots him. He heard about it. I'm like, well, I didn't shoot him. He's like, what the F are you doing, man? He's like, that drug dealer was tied to another guy who was somebody. And so now they're mad at me about that. I'm like, well, tell Johnny I didn't do it. He set it up. I didn't even know the freaking guy. So he's like, man, I can't help you if you keep doing stuff like this. I can't help you. I'm like, I don't need no help. I don't need nobody's help. I got me. And then Tony Zarelli at one point was like, man, Gunny, you can't beat everybody with these. Somebody's going to come with one of these. And I said, listen, they better be a good shot, Tony. I said, because I got these two. I said, and I'm a good shot. And what I'm going to do is get them, and I'm going to go for the person that sent them. I'm coming for them. And they all laugh. Tony was there. And I was like, but, it's kind of basically telling them, F all you guys, F whoever, I'll do what I want, whatever. So I ended up getting busted for extortion, bank robbery, armed robbery, weapons violation. It went on and on. It was like 17 capital charges. It was a lot. My bond was like $5.5 million. And I remember going to court every day. I was going to court for a new hearing, for a new arraignment. And I'd come back to the unit in the county jail, and everybody in the unit would be sitting there, and they're like, damn, bro, another million. And I was like, how you know? And he's like, you're on the news, bro. We're watching the news. We saw you freaking go for arraignment, freaking boom, And it was like, organized crime figure arraigned, given $1 million bond in St. Clair Shores for extortion or bank robbery or whatever it was. And then I'd come back in the whole freaking jail and see it on the news. And I was like, it's another one.
So you ended up getting convicted. And how many years in prison did you serve?
I was eventually, I copped out. I pled guilty to like 5 charges, and they dismissed the other ones. There was no way I could beat them. I knew I was cooked. No way around it. I knew the evidence was too insurmountable. So trying to go to trial and fight would have been ridiculous. They would have gave me 50 years. Had I fought it in trial and lost, I would have got probably 30 to 50 years. So I just copped down to 13 to 50. Actually, I copped down to 9.5. I was only supposed to have 9.5, but they reneged on the plea agreement at sentencing for the extortion charge in Oakland County, and they took all the charges from Macomb County. I got sentenced on the day before, and then refigured my guidelines after I already set a plea agreement to the bottom half of the guidelines. So they basically, when I walked in, they're like, oh, wow, we refigured the guidelines. We were wrong. They're not 72 to 140 months. They're 156 to 320 months. So we're going to give you the 156, which was 13 years. So I ended up going for 13 to 50 years. And I served 13.3 years.
My guest again, Gunner Allen Lindbloom. I appreciate you, man, for coming on here.
All right, man. Hit me up if you need me, bro.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.